What's up everybody, my name is Guillaume and today in this 2-hour course I'm going to teach you how to handle Supabase with Nextjs 14, the latest version. We are going to talk about authentication with the client or on server-side rendering, magic link, password reset, hooks, providers, and at the end we are going to create a complete application of upvote. Here we are going to apply everything we've learned all along the course. If you are ready to follow this course, let's go. Please subscribe, that's my only reward. If you got any question, put them into the comments. Thank you very much and have a good course. Welcome in this new set of video of Nextjs 14 with Supabase. We are going to install several packages and we are going to see how the keys are working, the anon key and the service role key. To start this course, you need to create a Nextjs 14 application by going on vercel.com and on typing npx create app latest. So I got my project, which is totally empty. I just run an npm install. And what we need also to do is to have a Supabase project. So here I got my Supabase Nextjs 14 a Supabase project, which is initiated in here. We've got some stats in here, but the project is totally empty for now. So we are going to plug in our Nextjs 14 project to this Supabase project by using actually the SDK of Supabase. But not only, we've got some packages that we can use, especially with Nextjs, to work with the authentication, and those packages are called actually helpers. The first one is the auth helpers Nextjs, which is in beta, that has been used for a long time now, and we can use this package to deal with authentication. But if we go on the official website documentation of Supabase, we've got this guide by John, Supabase auth with Nextjs app router, and we can see that we've got another package, and they recommend to use the Supabase SSR package for server-side rendering instead of auth helpers. We can also find this package directly on npm. Here, this is the package that seems to do exactly the same as the auth helpers, but we can see that we can use it for other frameworks. So I'm going to come back to my app and I'm going to install the Supabase JS SDK, the basic one that we use since a long time. And then I'm going to use also the auth helpers and the SSR package for the need of this course. So I'm going to type enter and install those packages. If you don't know React Handbook, it's a website that gives all the best practice about React. So you can find it on reacthandbook.dev. And if you click here on project standards, we've got a very interesting part, which is the structure of a React project. So of course, we are under Nextjs, but Nextjs is built on top of React. So we have some interesting folders here that we would use. We can see here that we got a lib folder, which is re-exporting different libraries pre-configured for the application. So I'm going to come back to my project and I'm going to go to the source folder and I'm going to create this new folder called lib. And I'm going to store my Supabase clients directly inside a supabase.ts file. On this Supabase file, we are going to create several clients and we are going to try to see what the keys are working for. Because inside our Nextjs 14 Supabase project, inside Supabase, when we go to project settings down here and then when we go to API, you can see here that we got several keys that we can use, the URL, the anon public, and the service role key, the GWT secret. I'm not going to use it. But we are going to see what these keys are for. So I'm going to come back and I need also to create a file, a new file, an env file, to have actually here all the keys that I need. So I'm going to set up those keys. So what I'm going to do here at first is to type here the prefix that we will need to for every project. So I got my next public here, Supabase URL. That is coming from where? Here. So this is the URL of the project. So I'm going to click on copy. I'm going to set up my URL. This is the URL that is going to be called to send all my requests from my clients that are using my application directly from the clients that we are going to create in here. Then what I want to do is to prefix again another key, which is actually the Supabase anon key. So here, be safe, please respect the name of the keys because some of the package that we have need those names. I'm going to set up another key, and this is a different one, which is the service role key. So what is the difference between both of them? Well, the service role key is supposed to be the admin key. The anon key, it's supposed to be for anon or other users that are going to use the application. Okay, so I'm going to come back here and I'm going to copy paste my two keys that I get here, so the service role and the anon public, and I'm going to set them directly inside my project. I got now my keys that I set into the YAML file. Here we are going to use directly the Supabase JS SDK. So I'm going to here type import and I'm going to use create client coming from where? From at Supabase/Supabase.js. Okay, so here I can create my first Supabase here, my first client. I'm going to call it Supabase, but we're going to change his name after. Create client, and here I need to call first my process.env next public Supabase URL, and at the end I'm going to put an exclamation point, and then I need to pass the key, and here I'm going to use my next here. I'm going to use my anon key to start. So Supabase here and anon here, anon key. There we go, and I'm going to do the same. Okay, now I'm going to get back to my project and I'm going to go to my table editor and I'm going to create a new table, and this table is going to be a table views. So basically this is just going to be a table views that is going to record every view every time a user is going to arrive on the app. So I'm going to type view, I will have a created at, and let's say I'm going to put like a name, it's going to be a text and it can be null. Okay, so I'm going to click on save. It's just for the role of this course. So I'm going to have this name here and I'm going to save it and it's going to be good. And there we go. So what I want to do is every time I arrive on my app, I want to just set a new view. And remember, we use the anon key, which is here. So if I come back to my app folder and I go to the page, I'm going to do some cleaning. I'm going to remove all of this. I'm going just to put a div hello. Here I got my page, which is on a server-side rendering. So here, if I want to pass on client, I can use client. Here, I'm going to stay on server-side. So I'm going to create a function, set new view, and it will be an asynchronous function because we are going to call Supabase. So here, I'm just going to type console log, setting new view, and I'm going to call set new view. So right now, I'm on SSR, so it will be actually here on my terminal that I'm going to see. And when I come back to my terminal, we can see that we set a new view. So here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to just call Supabase. So I'm going to type const, I'm going to receive some data, and Supabase is going to return to me an error if there is a problem. I'm going to call Supabase here, coming from my lib folder, and I'm going to type from views, and I'm going to insert a new view, and I'm going to type a name, random name, and we should be good. Now, if there is data, I'm going to console log the data. And if there is an error, I'm going to console log an error. Of course, I could wrap all of this into a try catch. I'm going to open my terminal. I just trigger my application and there we go. We have an error, and this error is new row violates row level security policy for table views. Why? Because we didn't write any row level security policy for our table views. Supabase is built on Postgres, and every table needs row-level security policies to get access to. So I'm going to come back, and I'm going to create a new row-level security policy for my table views. So I'm going to unzoom a little bit. I'm going to click here, and we see that there's nothing. So I'm going to click on Create New Policy, and I'm going to insert access for only authenticated people to start. So if I continue, we can see I got insert, I got select, update, delete all, and I will need to create a row level security policy for all these roles, and it will be on expression true authenticated. I'm going to click on review, save policy, and there we go. I should be able to insert an element. So if I come back and I trigger again, we have the same error. Why? Because we are not authenticated yet. That's what we're gonna do in the next lessons. However, if I come back and I change my policy here by clicking on Edit, and instead of authenticated, I choose another role, and here we see that we got several roles, the anon role and the service role. If I click on anon, what's gonna happen? Let's click on Review, Save Policy. And if I come back to my app and I trigger my app again, I can see that it worked because I have set up my RLS policy on the anon key. And I don't need to be authenticated anymore because on my RLS policy here, I don't need to be authenticated to set a new row. And I used the Superbase anon key. Now let's change. Let's put the service role key. Let's try again. Look at that. It also worked. I got a new view with the service role key. Now let's come back to the anon key. So we've got our next public Superbase anon key. And let's change this RLS policy, not for anon, but for the service role. So I'm going to save that, click on Review, Save Policy. And now, normally we can insert only on service role, okay? So I'm going to get back, I'm going to try to trigger again, and I got the error, new row violates row level security policy for table views. Why? Because here my Superbase client is using the anon key. However, we got here the service role that is only able to insert a new row inside this table. So basically what we could do here is to have two clients, one which will be actually on the service role key, and actually I forgot here it's supposed to be Superbase service role key. Here we can type here Superbase admin, we can call it admin to use the service role key, and the create client here will use actually the anon key. Depending on the RLS policy that you are going to use, you will be able to insert or not an element. However, even if you have the service role key and there is no RLS policy, you cannot inject inside your table a new row. Let's try. Let's delete this here, this element that we've got that we use as a RLS policy. So now normally we are not able anymore to insert any element to our table view. Back in my app, I'm going to use my Superbase admin, which is using the service role key. I'm going to use my Superbase admin, so I need to import it. There we go. And if I trigger again, we can come back and we've got the same error because we don't got any RLS policy. So what is the main difference between the anon key and the service role key? The service role key is supposed to be used for admin. Be safe with the service role key. Do not give the service role key to your users. So basically here, if it's a public application and not like a dashboard for a private access, I should never have a Superbase admin. I should use only the Superbase anon key. In the contrary, if it's a dashboard here, I can use only the service role key for all my application. We just saw that we can use the anon key and the service role key for two different goals, and we need to use them carefully. This doesn't prevent you to create RLS policy to update, delete, insert elements inside your tables. We can start by using the SDK of Superbase.js, but in the next lesson we are going to see that we shouldn't use the SDK all the time. We should use probably the other package that we installed, either if we are on the client, either if we are on the server-side rendering. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create an authentication system on the client side with Nextjs 14 and Superbase. Let's come back on the home page. Let's remove all of this. And let's say that when we arrive on this page, we will be logged in on the client side. So let's say that we're going to type logged in, and here on the top, I'm going to put use client. So when I update my application, the home page, the main page, will be logged in. Now let's create a new page called login, and on this new page I'm going to have a page.tsx, and I'm going to have a login page. So I'm going to type here a login, okay, and when I go on /login, I got the login page up here. All right, what we would like to do is every time we arrive on the main page, if we are not logged in, we would be redirected. So to do that, we would use what we call a middleware. So we can code this middleware, which will be at the base of my source folder. So here I'm going to create a new file called middleware.ts and not tsx, okay? Middleware.ts. There we go. So here we are going to prevent anyone to enter inside the app if he's not logged in, and we're gonna use for that the create middleware client coming from the auth helpers Nextjs that we installed before. So if I type create middleware client, we see here that I can import my create middleware client function coming directly from the package that we installed before. So I'm going to type export async, and here it would be a function, and here it's just basic Nextjs 14 code. We're gonna catch the request and we're gonna import the next request. Okay, so what we're gonna do here, we're gonna do a full process to catch every route. And in order to do so, we would need to use here the Supabase client, create middleware client. Why? Because here the middleware cannot initiate yet our Supabase client that we got in here. So we got to initiate again the create middleware client. The create middleware client will need the request, and it will need a response also. So the response, it will be basic. It will be here the next response simply dot next. Okay, so the next page. So it's going to use the next page in here. Okay, now we did that. It's completely locked. And basically we would like to match routes also. So here I need to create my config. So I can go on the bottom here. And the object config is taking actually a matcher, and it's going to be an array. And here we can have a list of pages where we would like to match this middleware, where we would like to pass the middleware before. So on the official documentation of Nextjs, we've got this list here. We match everything except API, the static image, and the favicon. Okay, so basically here we take everything. All right, so we are going to continue. So we got those two elements, and when we've got Supabase, we can then check if we are logged in or not. Of course, right now we are not logged in. We don't got any system. We didn't set up everything yet, but we're going to write the code to see how it works at first. So we are going to await our Supabase instance that is up here, and we are going to call auth and get session. So auth get session here locally is going to get the session for us. And in return, we're going to have an object data, and inside data, we're going to have a session. So we will be able to say if there is a session or not before we enter into the app and before we trigger the routes. So if there is no session, it's extremely simple. We are going to redirect, and here we're going to type next response.rewrite. We are going to rewrite the URL. We are going to use new URL, and we're going to redirect to login. And to provide this operation, we need the actual rec URL. Okay, so we don't get any session. We are going to be redirected to login. And if I try to go to home again, I'm locked on the login page we created. We forgot one thing. We want to say that if there is a session, we are going to return the response, of course. So let's look again at this middleware. We are going to trigger this middleware, which is at the root of the source folder. Every time we are going to enter any route except on the API, the next static image, favicon, etc., etc. We are going to initiate the create middleware client coming from Supabase auth helper Nextjs. Okay? Then what we do, we check if there is a session. And what we can do here is just console log our session, right? So we can be able to look at it. Then if there is no session, we rewrite the URL and we redirect to login. Okay, so now at this step, I need to come back to my Supabase client, And here I want to talk about the common mistake that a lot of people are doing, and they don't know how to get rid of this error they got. On my middleware, I'm using the Supabase Auth Helper Nextjs package. And later, I will try to create my client with the SDK of Supabase and not the package. And this is a common mistake. When you work with the session system, you need to use also the create component, client component from the same package. So if I'm using Supabase Auth Helpers Nextjs, I need also to use here the Supabase package, the same package, sorry. So if on my middleware I'm using this package here, the Supabase Auth Helper Nextjs, on the client side I need to use exactly the same. So I'm going to rewrite this, and I'm just going to remove that. And I'm going also to remove the client, and I'm going to start over. And I'm going to create a new Supabase client using a new function coming from the Auth Helpers Nextjs. This function is going to be called create client component client. It's a bit complicated as a name, but it says that you need to use that for the client. So I'm going to use this one, and I'm going to create my Supabase client like this. And here I don't need to put my Supabase URL, my Supabase key, because remember on my env file, I respected the name of every key. So it will be able to retrieve inside my env file the correct keys. For those who didn't saw the last course, you need to have next public Supabase URL, next Supabase anon key, and next public Supabase service role key. All right, the last step is now to implement a login system. To do so, we come back to our Supabase instance. And what we've got here is on authentication on the provider, we've got a login system with email. On the email template, I can see that I got templates for confirm the sign up, the magic link, the change email, invite a user. Basically, what we're going to do, we are going to use the confirm sign up actually. I'm going to go on the authentication documentation, and I'm going to use actually the user management, which is here. And I'm going to use the sign up or sign in with password that I got in here. Okay, back in my app, I'm going to create my function login, which will be asynchronous and which will be a try-catch function. Here I can come back and just copy paste the user login code that I got down here. So here I'm going to do exactly this. I'm going to copy paste this code, which is here. I would need to create my email, and I would need to catch also my email and password, but I would need to call my Supabase coming from my Supabase library. If there's an error, I'm going to console log the error, and we should be good. And if there is data, I want to console log the data. Okay, so that's the first step. So down here, I need to catch the password and the email. On my template, I'm going to use snippet to go faster. I'm going to use my form text here, form text to get two inputs, one for the email, the second for the password. So I can update my email here and my password down there, and I can put password here. Let's say that here it's going to be password also. I got a handle change function that will help me to change here actually my data, but data doesn't exist. So I'm going to go on the top and I'm going to create my data set data here, which will be of user state. And here we're going to have what? We're going to have an email, which will be a string, and a password that would be a string also. And inside I would have exactly the same, but here it's going to be empty on both sides. So I got my two elements. I just need to have a button to send this. And here on my function, I don't get any loading, but that's all right. So I'm going to assume that you will work on the login system by yourself later. So I will click on login, and when I will click, of course, I will send here login directly. I'm gonna add some style to it because I got Tailwind CSS. Let's say that I'm going to have a max width of 400 pixels. And there we go. So I got my email, I got my password, and then I can fulfill all of this and try to log in and to look at the response that we will get. Okay, I got my password, I got my email up here. If I click on login, I got an error because I can't sign in if I didn't sign up before. So what I need to do at first is to use sign up instead of sign in. Okay? So what I can do with Supabase is that when a user is going to try to authenticate, we can go to the list and we will see his name appearing in here. And let's try. So I click on sign up here. We can see that we've got a user, but we don't get any session because we are supposed to receive an email to confirm our signing up. However, if I go on auth, we can see that I got my test@gmail and I got my waiting for verification that is here. Now let's use a real email, somebody that confirmed. And instead of sign up, I need to sign in with password. And down here, I'm going to put login. What I'm going to receive here is supposed to get the data user. So I'm going to come back. I'm going to click on login. And look at this. Suddenly, we've got session plus the user that we got down here. However, we haven't been redirected. So what we need to do is here to actually open our response, and we need to call use router coming from route navigation. So here I got router and I would like to refresh. So when I log in, I would like to refresh my page. And suddenly when I come back, I'm already redirected to the main page where I'm logged in. And if I try to update, look at this, I try to update, the middleware automatically redirect me. And when I open my console, we can see here that the middleware catch the access token, the token type, the refresh token, everything concerning my actual session. The main point of this video was to create an authentication system on the client side with Supabase. We saw that we need to use only one package, which is the auth helper Nextjs, both on the middleware and on the client side. Let's set up together the server-side rendering authentication on Nextjs 14 with Supabase. On the previous course, we saw how to set up the authentication on the client side. Now let's do it on the server-side rendering. It's a bit different because we can't use the client features that we have when we create a client application. So we are going to do mainly in two steps. The first step will be to create endpoints that we're going to call and that are going to set our session. There will be the sign up endpoint, the login, and the logout. The second step will be to create our login page and to deal with the authentication directly inside the app. Okay, so let's go to the app folder, and here I'm following everything that is on the Supabase official documentation. I'm going to change some stuff. Here, I'm going to show you my custom way of doing it, but mainly I'm going to respect the architecture of the folder they recommend to have. So here on my app, I'm going to create a new folder called auth, and on auth, I'm going to create a first root called sign up. So I'm just going to put sign up like this. I'm going to create a root here, a root.ts, and this is going to be the root that we are going to call to actually sign up a user. So this root is going to be a function, so export async function post, and inside I'm going to have a request, or here I put a rec, which will be of type, here we can use request, but actually I'm going to use next request, which we'll have here. Okay, so we will need to post to a /auth/signup. When it's done, at the end here, I'm going to return first a response. I'm going to use next response. And what I want to do here in this case is to redirect. When we sign up, we want to redirect, okay? So at first, we need to build a URL, and here I'm going to create a variable called URL, and I'm going to use the URL function builder that is available here, and I'm going to pass my rec URL. There we go. So from this URL, I will catch an origin, and this is what I want to have. After that, I can pass what I want here. I'm just going to pass a status 301, exactly like Supabase does. Okay, so I got everything that I need. I'm going to have, of course, to create the Supabase client, because here I don't got my Supabase. Remember, in the latest course, we were creating some clients in here. I can't extract them. I need to use a specific function, and this is where all the magic happens. This specific function is coming from the package auth helpers Nextjs. So for those who didn't follow my course, we've installed Supabase auth helpers Nextjs, Supabase SSR, and Supabase JS. The difference between SSR and auth helpers is that SSR is supposed to be the latest package. It's brand new by the time I'm doing this video, so I will keep continuing using the auth helpers Nextjs. Alright, so here at the top of my file, I'm going to import from this package a function that will actually handle the client. So here I'm going to call create root handler client from Supabase auth helpers Nextjs, and I'm going to click here. There we go. So now I got my function. I can initiate my Supabase instance. And inside this Supabase instance, this root handler, I need to use the cookie system. Yes, of course, because by this moment, I need to get the cookie to be sure that I'm logged in or that I have a session. So here I can use cookies from next headers, and I can set here my cookie store. So I'm going to call it like this, cookie store, and it's a function that I need to trigger. And here inside, I need to use, and if we look at it, I need to use the cookie here that we got. We need to set up the cookie directly here. So I'm going to use cookies, and I'm going to call cookie store. However, here, I need to trigger it because it's a function, and I need to call and to return cookie store in here. So we've got our Supabase instance. We are available here to use Supabase. So what I can do here is to have a const response, and here await, and I'm going to call this Supabase instance that I got up here. And like every time, I'm going to use the package that is available, the package auth. And in auth, I got access to sign up. And in sign up, this is where I'm going to push everything that is going to come from my form on the login page. So here, what I will have is actually the email and the password. Okay, and to get this email and this password, I need to deconstruct my form data that is coming from up here. So I'm going to have my form data, which is here, is equal to await, and here I'm going to type rec, and I need to use my form data. From this form data, I will have my email here. So here I need to transform my form data here and get my email, and I need to do exactly the same for my password, which is here, and then we should be good. So these are the steps. Okay, so I sign up to email and password. Then what I need to do is to redirect here. So here I will say that my email that I will receive will redirect me to another endpoint that we are going to create just after. And this endpoint will be the callback endpoint. So we're going to call this endpoint auth sign up. It's going to send an email through our Supabase instance to the user. The user will confirm, and when he will confirm, this is where we are going to lead the user. This email redirect to is the URL on the button. And remember down here, we've got our URL origin. This is where we are going to use it. So I'm going to use my URL origin, and we are going to redirect to the auth callback endpoint that we are going to call right away. So I got my response in here, and I actually don't need the response. And we should be good for that. Now let's code this auth/callback endpoint. Here on my auth folder, I'm going to create a callback folder, and here I'm going to create a root.ts, and this is where we are going to call the callback. So here this callback will actually exchange a code coming from Supabase. for the session, to initiate the session. So we really need to have this endpoint auth callback that we're going to call every time to set the session. So we can start by creating here our async function, which will be here a get, be safe, and here we're going to have the next request available there. There we go. And then we are going to return our next response, redirect. And exactly like we did on the other endpoint, we can copy paste actually. We are going to use the URL and we will redirect to where? To the url.origin, which is here. So I need to put it here, it's better. There we go. And I need to import my next response origin, and we are good. So origin with no mistake. Okay, that's what we're going to do. In between, we're going to need to actually use the cookie store and exchange here the code that we've got. So what we want to do here is to catch the code at first. So here I'm going to type code, and this is the code we want to have. It's going to be in the URL, url.searchparams, simple, get, and we're going to get what? The code. If there is a code, this is where we are going to do the operation. So if there is no code, we can redirect where we want, but here I'm going to redirect when we got the code. So const cookie store is equal to cookies. Again, we call again the cookies, of course. Remember, we used to call the cookies on the sign-up route. Here we're going to do it again. Const superbase, and here we need to use exactly the same function that we got up here, the create route handler. So we need to initiate again the superbase instance that we get here. So we can just copy paste actually. It's going to be as easy as this. There we go. So we're going to have the cookies. And we're going to do the operation here, superbase and auth, we call auth. And after auth, we use the function exchange code for session, And we just pass the code down here. So now that we've got this, we are able to set the session and get the code. For the login and the logout, it will be exactly the same. We would replicate here the same logic that we've got here. However, we're going to change every time the function that we got down here. The only exception that we've got is for the logout route. Of course, on the logout route, we don't need to catch the body or to send anything. What we need to do is just to call sign out, and we are good. All right, now it's time to work on the login page. So remember here, I'm going to create a login here folder, page.tsx. Remember here, we will be on server-side rendering. So we are not going to use client, neither the user state to catch our data. We will need to write it in raw, exactly in raw. So I'm going to create my page login, which is here, and I'm not going to use the client. I will need to return here a form that I will use actually to send my data directly to the endpoint. So here I will get the form. I'm going to zoom a little bit. And the form action, of course, will be here to call here our /auth/signup, okay? If you want to sign up, it's going to be for sign up. Here I'm on login, so here I'm going to call login. I'm going to use the method post. And again, the endpoint login, it's exactly the same as sign up, except that we sign in with email and password. So here I'm going to use my label. I got a label email, I got my name email, my HTML for the password, and then the button sign in. And now every time I'm going to click on sign in, I will send here the information to the login endpoint. And if I change here and I try to sign up, and if I test the sign up here, I click on sign up, here I'm redirected to the home page. If I go to auth, here we can see that I got my new user, so the sign up worked well. On my console, I can come back and I can see that I got here my user with the access token, the refresh token. And this is what I console logged when I deconstruct here my Superbase instance on the login page. So remember the login post endpoint, So here we deconstruct, and what I got here is my user. That's great. However, here we don't handle the page through the middleware. So we should create a middleware file. This is the last step to handle the page, showing the page or not. So let's go at the root of our source folder, and we are going to create a new file, which will be a middleware.ts. We are at the root of the source folder. So what we're going to do here, we are going to export an async function, which will be here a function middleware. And here I'm going to receive my request like always, next request. There we go. And this function middleware is going to be triggered every time we enter in the root. Okay, so at first we are going to create a res, so next response.next. Then we will need to initiate Supabase, and exactly like on the auth client session that I did, we are going to use the function create middleware client. Be safe here, you need to use always the same package. Don't mix packages. Don't mix the SDK with this package in here. Okay, here we need to pass the request and the response. And when we have this, we can deconstruct data, error, and we can set here await Supabase, and we are going to call auth, and we are going to call the function get session. So get session will be here. So what we can do, we can console log this data, okay, and we can console log an error if there is an error, and then we can return the response. Let's just try this at first. I go to my app, I refresh, and when I come back, we see here that we've got a session and we don't get any error. So what we can say that if there is a data, and let's look a little bit, data.session, so we can deconstruct here the session. If there is a session, what we can do, we can say that we return res, we go to the next page. Otherwise, we want to redirect to the login page. So we're going to do the contrary. If there is no session, what we want to do is to type next response, rewrite, and we are going to use new URL, and we are going to redirect to /login. And after that, we need to pass the rec URL that we got up here. So I'm going to type rec URL, and we should be good like this. So we've got our instance. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake here. There we go. We need to catch this. And there we go. If there is no session, we return to this one. Exactly like before, we can use our config here object, and we can match some roots. So here I'm going to have the matcher, which will be an array or a string. And I can use on the official documentation of Nextjs this here regex to match either the API, the static, etc., etc. So we are going to match every root in here. I'm going to change my home page. You are logged in here. I'm going to save that. And when I come back, of course, I'm logged in because I already logged in. If I go on an incognito window, here I can try to access every page that I want, the home page. I'm redirected automatically to the login page. In this video, we saw that the process of setting up the authentication on server-side rendering with Supabase is really easy to set up. It's really fast to make and really easy to handle. One of the fastest way to log in with Supabase is with Magic Link. The user is going to enter his email, he's going to click on login, he's going to receive an email with a link, he's going to click on it, and then the session is set directly inside our Supabase instance. I created a new branch called Magic Link based on the authentication client. I'm going to get back to my login page, and when I arrive here on my login page, I got the sign in with password. So what I want to do first is to hide here this password because I don't need the password anymore. And I can remove the password from here and I can call it sign in with OTP. So this is the method to log in with the Magic Link. Then what I can do here is to pass options, and as options here I got several possibilities. I can have the option to actually should create a user true or false. So if there is no user here, it will create a user. Then what we need to change also is that when I get my data, I don't want to refresh here. I would like just to trigger actually here. Let's come back, and we would like to have a const success set success. Okay, let's say that user state, and here it will be Boolean. Here it's going to be on false by default. I'm going to trigger it to true. What we would like to do is to say If there is a data user, and it's not necessarily here data user, what we need to change here is that we want to have from data user the user. So if there is a user, and we're going to check that just after, we want to set success to true. But basically here we are going to receive an email to log in, and in this email we're gonna have a button that will redirect us to the app. So this is where we're gonna need to work on catching the session and setting the session. So here, whatever's gonna happen, we want to set the success on true. And down here, I'm gonna say that if there is success, okay, I would like to display like a div, okay, and say an email has been sent to, and here we are going to put the data.email that we catch to login. I'm going to add some style to it. Here I'm going to have a margin on the top and on the bottom. BG green 500, PX2, text green, let's say 600, and the BG actually it's going to be more 100. Okay, so we're gonna have some success. If we come back, we see that this is going to be the result. So I'm going to trigger this on false. There we go. So let's come back now. Let's put a real email. So my email, I'm already signed up. So I'm going to click on login. And there we go. We can see that here we send an email to codewithguillaume@gmail to login. If I get back to my app, I got my magic link. And here, if I look here at the URL, we can see that I'm going to log in to localhost 3000. So I'm going to click here. I'm logged in, it works. So let's come back. Remember, we've got the middleware and we've got the session. So I'm going to try to console log the session that I got in here. And actually here we can see that I got my session that is set up. It's really easy to work with the magic link. We've got an email that is sending to our application directly the login system. Now let's say that we would like to have a logout. So I'm going to come back to my page. I got my login page, which is here. And down here, let's say that I would like to have a button with actually logout. And I'm going to bind a function that I'm going to call logout, and I'm going to do just after. I'm going to add a bit of style and BG blue, let's say BG blue 500, text white, and cursor pointer. And there we go. And up here, I'm going to create my function logout, which will be actually an asynchronous function. So when I come back, I got my logout button. What I want to do here is to call again Supabase data error here, await Supabase coming from my Supabase client. I'm going to go here, auth, and then I'm going to go here and I'm going to call sign out. And if it's sign out, what we want to do, we want to redirect directly to our login page, and we can use the middleware for that. So I'm going to call here use router, which is coming from Next Navigation, and I'm going to initiate my router here on the top. So router is equal to use router, and I'm going to call router refresh. So router.refresh, and when we're going to click on that, just after we are supposed to get our response. So here we can see that we can have a data or an error here. And actually we don't need to get this data or error, okay? We just want to call our session to be here. So let's come back here. I'm going to click on logout, and what's going to happen is that here I'm redirected to my login page. Let's do the workaround again. I'm going to call my magic link. Again, I have my link in here. I'm going to click on login, and immediately this time I'm logged in. I got my session. We saw that with Magic Link, we can log in really fast without a password. And I know a lot of people contest the Magic Link option because they say it's not secure, but actually it's the most secure way because we don't enter any password and no password can be cached. We log in through a token. If you offer to your users to log in with a combination of an email and a password, This is a must feature to have. You need to understand how to reset the password. This is what we are going to do with Nextjs 14 and Supabase. Okay, so everything starts on the login page. We should have here an option to reset the password. So what we can do is to come back to our app here on the login page. And here we can set a new variable, reset password, and set reset password. Set reset password, there we go. User state, which will be a boolean, and we can set it up by default to false. So we can do that to false, there we go. And let's come back at the bottom. And what we can do here is, instead of having all of this, and let's say that we would trigger only this if there is no reset password, or we could make also a new component. Let's say that. So here I need to wrap all of this inside another div or fragment, otherwise we will have a problem. There we go. So once I got this, I can have also here an option on the bottom that says that if reset password, we can say that we would like to access to login. Otherwise, we would like to access to reset my password. Until now, really simple to understand. If we come back, we've got this button, and let's say that every time we click on it, we want to set reset password, okay, from the opposite of the value of reset password. Okay, until now, this is easy and we don't want to overload our on-click. So when we come back, if I click, we can see that we've got this. So this is cool. I can probably put a cursor, pointer, and on hover text decoration to make people understand that they can actually text decoration, no, underline. Sorry for that. There we go. So when I pass my mouse, I can pass on here, and there we go. So once I got this, what I can do simply is to use here my condition, if reset password, and we're gonna have a div. We're gonna keep the button here, and I'm going to create a new function that will be called send reset password. Okay, we're gonna have to create this function here on the top. So I'm gonna go here, const send reset password, which will be an asynchronous function that we are going to develop just after. And here, instead of that, I'm going to have reset my password. There we go. Here, I'm going to have a grid of gap 4, exactly like we should have here on the top. Grid gap 4, we should be good. And there we go. So I'm going to have the option to reset my password. What I can just do is to copy paste here the email. So I'm going to go down here, and I would have my email, and I have my reset password. I can also work on a success message that will say, hey, you successfully resetted your password. So as I did on the previous lesson, I can put to have my success, set success by default on false. I'm going to come down. Here I can put a message. Success, check your email to reset your password. Okay, so here I got my success, check your email to reset your password. I can put some style to it. BG green 100, text green 600, PX2, and here let's put it a bit on rounded, and we should be good. Okay, so here I just want to show it if it's success. Okay, so success, and my, there we go. So I can switch here, and I got reset my password. Okay, so how do we reset the password? When we are going to send the email here, we are going to send actually directly to the email a confirmation of resetting the password. And if we go back here to our email template, we've got here a template to reset the password that we can change. We can update this template, put more information if we want to inside of it. Okay, so when we're going to click on this confirmation URL, we are supposed to arrive to a URL on our app to reset the password. So we miss here a view, and this view is supposed to be here a reset view. So I'm going to use my reset page, which is here. I'm going to create a new file called page.tsx, and I'm going to initiate my page hello reset. So let's just try to go to see this view. And of course, we are not logged in, so we don't get access to this view. So what we need to do, we need to come back to our source and our middleware. To do so, I need to rewrite here a condition before Supabase here. I don't need to get access to Supabase to do it. What I want to do is to have a const, and let's call it public URLs. And here I'm gonna have what? I'm gonna have the path that I'm going to create. So I'm going to call it reset. You can call it whatever. And once I have done this, I can say, hey, if public URLs include, and here include what? The rec.nexturl.pathname, and here it's going to be our pathname. We can return res. So here we got a list of URL that are going to be public. And if the request URL will be actually the path that we want to make public, we are going to just abort everything that is just after, okay? We are going to abort all of that. We are going to just return the res. So if I come back here, I'm going to try to do it again. There we go, we access to hello reset. So now we can come back to the page reset and we can actually create our reset page. So what I can do simply is to just copy paste login because I know that login is easy. And I'm going to have here confirm password instead of email and password. So I'm going to have password and confirm password. So I can remove all the JavaScript that I got, almost everything. Let's remove everything and let's start over. We're not going to keep anything. Just what we're going to keep here is our form text. So here I'm going to have enter your new password. Okay, and here we're going to have password. And after I'm going to have exactly the same, but it's going to be confirm your new password, and here it's going to be confirm password. Okay, so when I come back, I got those two input here, and after that I would like to have my div button. So I deleted it, but I should have keep it. It's dumb. The button here to confirm the new password. So we're gonna have here confirm, okay, and instead we're gonna have confirm passwords with an S because we already got here the confirm password. So I'm going to type const confirm password, which will be an async function, and we will get this. Okay, so we got here what we need. The first thing that we're gonna do is to check that if, so here I'm going to deconstruct my data here that we have up here, password and confirm password. If password is different from confirm password, we are going to return an alert. Confirm your password are not the same. Your passwords are incorrect. There we go. So let's just try. So here, let's say that I'm typing something and here I'm typing something and I click. We can't submit because we need to have the same password. Also, if I want to hide them, I can change their type and put password instead. So we see that we've got here this. A trick for that kind of problem. Here we're gonna have a variable here that will be show password, user state here that will be Boolean, and then we're gonna have here false. There we go. And I would like to trigger here exactly like the one just after. So here we would like to know if we got show password. See, if we got show password is going to be text, otherwise it's going to be password. Okay, so to trigger this here, you see that we don't see anything. I can have here just a div with a little text. Let's say that class text sm show passwords. And when we're going to click on it, we are going to use set show password, the opposite of show password. And again, we never overcharge. We go here. So I'm going to add here a class cursor pointer hover underline exactly like before. So when I come back here, I can type my password and we can see here that I got a view on my passwords. Okay, we've got the reset page. Let's come back to login and let's go to send reset password. So what we're going to do here, we are going to use a try catch again, and we're going to console log the error. We don't handle the error in here, but what we're going to do, we are going to say const data error, and we are going to await again for Supabase, and we are going to call again the auth package, and we are going to call reset password for email. And we need to put here data.email, our email. We could prevent also. And after that, we want to redirect. So here we see that we've got a problem. We're going to put reset data. There we go. We want to redirect. So I'm going to write redirect to, and this is where the magic happens. I'm going to use here the path that I want to lead to. I can use my window.location.href, and after that I can use reset because here I will already get my slash. After that I can set success to true and we should be good. It's time to try, so I'm going to click on reset my password. I got an email to reset my password, and if I look at the URL, I'm going to copy the link address and we are going to look at it together to see what it gives at the end. We've got here the URL with reset. So if I type here this URL, I arrive directly here with the reset code. And you see this code will be used to identify your reset session. Okay, let's finish here the confirm password. Okay, simply here it's going to be data, error, and then await, Supabase. Again, we are going to use auth, and here we need to import Supabase, of course. There we go. We're going to use auth, and we're going to use the update user function that will update the current user. So we've got our password here that will come from data.password. Okay, and we see here that we've got a problem. So we can put reset data again, and we're going to say just after if reset data, there we go. Console log reset data, or if there is an error, we can console log the error. So here at this step on the reset page that we've got in here, we are going to reset the password, okay? So when we're going to receive the email, we are going to be able to reset it directly. It's going to take care about everything. Okay, let's go. I made a mistake. So if I click here, we can see that my passwords are incorrect. But if I click here again on confirm, here we see that we've got our user back. We don't get any success message. We should have make one, but we've got our user back. What we would like to do is after the reset here, I would like to redirect to the home page. So again, we can use our router. Remember, we got our router, and we can say const router. We are going to put it on the top. Use router. There we go. We're going to just copy paste and put it here. There we go. And then what we would like to do is to do router push, and here we are supposed to push to home. As you have seen, to reset a password, it's really easy, especially with Supabase. In 2 functions and 2 screens, you are able to give the opportunity to your user to reset their password. The authentication system of Supabase is working with a GWT that gives us an access token and a refresh token. And in this video, we are going to talk about those sessions and how to use those tokens to retrieve a session, to get a session, and of course, to set a new session. Let's try to get our current session right now, and let's look at how it looks like. If you remember well, in our app folder, actually it's on our source folder, we got here a function called auth get session. So I'm going to copy paste this function. I'm going to go to my page, and remember on our page we got nothing. I'm still on the client side, but it's going to be the same if you are on SSR. What I'm going to do, I'm going to call Supabase again here, the lib, there we go. And I'm going to try actually to put that into a function. Let's call it a get session. Would be really simple to do here. We're gonna have this, there we go. And we are going to console log the session. We would like to trigger this every time we arrive on the app. So here is just to show you, I'm going to call get session when the app is going to get launched. So here I can wrap this here inside and we should be good. So I got my get session. So I'm going to come back here to my application. I'm going to open my console. I'm going to go directly here. I'm going to load again. And look at this. I got a big object and I would like to take a look quickly at this big object because first in this object, in this session, we got the access token, which is actually a GWT token. If you don't know authentication with GWT, I recommend you to go to watch some videos. We've got an expires in and we've got a refresh token and the token type, which is the BR. We've got the current user, and this is probably interesting for you if you want to show which user is logged in through his email. So when you use Supabase auth get session with the session, inside the session, you get the access token, the refresh token, and the user. Me, I would like to focus quickly on the access token and on the refresh token. So what I'm going to do at first here, I'm going to copy paste this token and we are going to go on a website to decode this token and take a look at it. If I go on gwt.io, I can go here and I can try to decode actually the token provided by Supabase, which helped me to deal with my session. So take a look at this quickly. Here, we've got some information that helped us to decode the token. Actually, to code the token, it will be exactly the same. And this information that we get here, we don't find it here inside the get session we've got. We've got something different. Actually, all this information is stored inside this GWT token. This is a way to crypt actually to secure our session login. And we can see down here that we've got a session ID, and when we look at it, it looks actually like a UUID, and we often find UUIDs in Supabase. So we see here that our session is unique, it's based on our email, and it's based here on an ID. And if I go back to my authentication system, we can probably see that the ID beginning by 21CB, the sub here ID, is actually looking exactly like this one, which is the ID that I find here as a user UID directly on my authentication board. Okay, so I got here the access token, I got the refresh token, and if I go to application here, and if I go first to local storage, let's look at it, there is nothing. If I go to session storage, there is nothing. But if I go to localhost, the cookies where I was at first, we've got this Supabase, blah, blah, blah. And here I recognize the ID actually of my project, HYCC, etc., that I got here on the top if you want to look at it. So Supabase, blah, 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 auth token. And look at this, what do we got? We've got here actually the same token that is stored. So if I remove here, if I remove the token, I refresh my application, suddenly I'm logged out. Why? Because here I remove the token that Supabase auth, the SDK locally, get when we log in. So I will need to log in again. Here I just put my credential, and if I click on a login, what's going to happen here? We see that we've got again the cookie that has been set, so my session, and here we can see that I got the get session that returned to me some information, exactly the information that we saw. Supabase is providing to us an host system based on user session. What is a session? A session, it's simply like a time frame where we get access to an application through a token. The token, that's what we saw here, okay? This is this long piece of string, which is encrypted with an algorithm and token type here with a process, and then we've got a payload data that is down here. We can do the opposite process, of course, and actually the token of Supabase here that we receive and that is set automatically, it has the form of a GWT, a JSON web token. And we also got the refresh token that we use to refresh the session, because your token here is going to last really short, and Supabase has a system to refresh automatically the token. So this is a basic question that people ask. What is recommended as a token expiration? Because we can check, we can change directly into Supabase the time when this token is available. To do so, I can go to authentication here, and I can go down and we can see that we got other features that we can use, such as the minimum password length. We've got here the user session, and we can enforce single session per user. If I go more down, we can see here that we've got our here access GWT. And we see here that we can set up the time in seconds when our access token will be available to be used. So here we can see that the recommendation is 1 hour. So the best would be to let it like this to 3600 seconds, and then it will give you the opportunity to refresh the token automatically by checking here this switch, detect and revoke potentially compromised refresh token. It will help you to actually prevent if there is a compromised refresh token. If you want to continue to learn about the session and the token, you can go on the Supabase doc, and we've got here a very interesting question, which is what are the benefits of using access and refresh token instead of traditional session? We've got a big explanation, which is very interesting. I let you go to read it. Me, I'm going to pass to all the methods that help us to get the session, set the session, etc., etc. So how to retrieve a session, but actually what we can use also is other method. We can use actually the method to refresh the session. So if I want to refresh the session, I can simply here just switch. What I can type here is to use refresh session if there is a problem at a certain point. So here I'm just going to keep that and copy paste the function. So you will have everything inside the repository. I will have refresh session, which will be simply here refresh session to refresh the session. And we can at the end return the new session that we got here, and same here, return the session here. Also, what we can do is to set the session data. And probably you will have this issue if you work with the authentication system and if you change everything that I show you. Probably you will need to set the new session again. And to do so, what you can do is that when you got a session, you got, remember, the access token and the refresh token. And for some reason, if it doesn't work to set the session, you could have a new function here that would be async. And what you would do here is to use the set session. So I can just copy paste here everything that is here, and I could return here true, for instance. And instead of having refresh session, we would have simply the set session function. So I call them the same name in order for you to understand that actually it's this function. Okay, so here I have an object and I'm supposed to receive here the access token and the refresh token. So I can put here access token as a string and refresh token as a string also. Okay, so we would have both of them. And we would pass the access token and the refresh token. What this function is going to do, it's going to actually set here the token directly inside your storage. So for some reason, if you don't get the cookie, if you don't get anything, if you use this function, it will set the session for you. So let's try, let's say that here we're gonna have a get session. So what we would like to do is just to set the session again. Here we would get here the session, and then we would deconstruct here from the session. So I'm going to get back after with the access token and the refresh token. Here, refresh token. I would get my session that I would be set in here. So instead of doing that, what I can simply do here is to deconstruct here on the top my session with my access token. So I got my access token and my refresh token. And just after, what I can do is to use the set session function. Await set session with the access token and refresh token. and we should be good. Here we saw that we need to set up session in order to be authenticated and to use Supabase. And of course, they thought about everything because in the SDK, we got all the function to retrieve a session, to refresh a session, and to set a new session. Hooks is a basic of React and Next.js, and in this course, I'm going to show you a method to quickly set up hooks with Nextjs 14 and Supabase. In the previous course, we talked about sessions and we used the Supabase SDK and the auth package to get the session and to set the session. And we ended up with this code here in my home page that is a bit annoying because I would like to have this code everywhere into my app. And we know that with Nextjs 14, we can of course use the hooks. So the hooks, it's external function that you can call and that are distributing a whole logic that is either a business logic, either an app logic, whatever you want to call it. So here I'm going to create a new folder called hooks, and in this folder hooks, I can create any hook that I want. So there is two approaches. The first approach is a functional approach. Let's say that we can, under Nextjs 14, create a usehelper.js or .ts hook that would distribute here a logic of helpers. And here, let me give you a concrete example. We are under Nextjs 14. I'm going to use the router, the path name, a lot of other things that will be common to most of the file of my application. I could create a new file called usenavigation.ts, and this useNavigation will be everything related to the navigation. So here I got a hook, a custom hook that I created for myself that is using useParams and distributing the params, the use path name that is distributing the path name, etc., the router, and I even have some variable. This logic here can be called directly inside my home, like this, by using useNavigation simply. Here, and useNavigation, here I can deconstruct everything that I have inside my hook, such as, for instance, the router. So I would call the router and be available here inside my scope, inside my home page. Let's get back. Here, the use helper, we can delete it. I'm going to let you the use navigation if you want to use it. Otherwise, you can go on my website and there will be a new tab, snippets, where I'm going to store all my future snippets. Here, let's say that we could use, for instance, a use supabase.ts. And again, here we are in a functional approach. So we got here use navigation that is displaying a lot of functions and variables and using the packages available by Nextjs 14 everywhere into the app. Otherwise, we could have here a use Supabase hook that could do exactly the same. This is the functional approach. I'm going to come back to this hook just after. Now, let me show you the second approach, which is the business approach. Remember, we have a table called views inside my Supabase instance, and I could have probably a use views hook. And here, these use view hooks will be actually related not to the functionality of my app, but to the business logic. Inside this application, I would like to store views inside Supabase. If I go back to my table, I already have here some views and probably I want to provide some operations. So what I would do is to export const, and here, if I want to not lose time, I can copy paste this. Okay, I'm going to come back. I can copy paste here. I got my hook. I got my use views, okay? And to store, if I would like to have all the views, what I could do is simply to have a const views set views is equal to user state here, and I would have a type of view, but here I'm just going to put any, and actually it's going to be any with here. I'm going to use user state from React, and at the end I would return my views and my set views. So here I got a business logic hook. And here on Superbase, I would have more a functional logic hook. So we're gonna write both of them to look at the difference. Here I would have my use Superbase, and at the end I would return everything that is logic concerning Superbase. But here I would have more a business logic one. Let's get back to my application and look at this. What I can do is to export all the function of the session from before inside here in my functional logic hook. And I need, of course, to import my Superbase here. And then suddenly I got access to everything. So I could have set session, refresh session, and the last one, I think it's get session, if I remember well. So all my functions are available here. And what I can do directly in here, instead of having my function all in here, I can call use Superbase. And here we remember we call get session. And there we go. When we come back to our app, we update, and we've got our session exactly like before. Okay, this is what I call a functional logic hook. Basically, in here, we've got function that we could use everywhere. However, inside our business logic hook, we don't want to use the views everywhere. We would like to use them only on pages such as the views. So basically what I would like to do here is to fetch my views directly inside here. And I cannot call my use Superbase hook. It's not recommended to mix hooks like this. You will have huge side effects. So what I would do simply is to have a function called getViews, which would be an asynchronous function that will call what? Of course, it will call Superbase, but the client coming from the library we created before. So here I would have my data or views, as we could call it. However, the thing is here we've got the views. And we would have a function to fetch from the table views. And here you need to write the RLS policies, okay? And from views, we would select everything from a view, okay? And if there would be data, and again, here I'm not wrapping it into a try-catch, but you should wrap it to a try-catch. I would set my views, actually, the data coming from here, directly inside my views up here. So we see here that we store Superbase here as a functional hook with function that I can use everywhere, but also in my business logic hooks, I'm calling my client Superbase. So I mix both of the logic here to have access to the functions that I want and to also facilitate the developer's life. Especially if you are working in a team, you need to respect some convention in order for the people after you to understand what you wrote. And of course, for your future you. Your future you is going to come back in some months and probably will not understand anything. So if you did your job well, you are supposed to understand immediately where are the functions you need, where are the logic. Everything needs to be separated in order to understand faster the project and to enter into it faster. Okay, I just built a new table called articles and I just have titles for now. I'm going to insert a new row level security policy. Let's say that I would like for anybody to read the article. So I will come here and I don't set any role. It's going to be public and I'm going to call it read for all. And I'm going to click on review. So now I'm able to fetch my articles. The first logic that I would do is to come back to my app, get here and create a new hook called use articles.ts. And in this new articles, what I would do is exactly the same that I showed you with the views. I created this hook called use articles. I got here a variable articles, which has any type. I could create my type later. And what I do is to fetch the articles and I wrote the RLS policy. And when I got the articles, I set the articles. So I'm going to get back to my home here and I'm going to remove this and remove this. And I'm going to call my use articles here hook. and I'm going to deconstruct here my useArticle function, and I'm going to call articles and get articles. Then down here, I'm going to call get articles. And what I would like to do here is just to have a list, okay, of articles. And I'm going to type articles.map, and I'm going to return here a list of articles. And remember, and in each article, we've got here a title. So I need, of course, to put the key. So I'm going just to put any for now. Key, index, and I'm going to put my, in number, there we go. And here I'm going to put my key here and my key here. So this is as simple as this. So I'm going to go to the line for you. And when I come back to my app, there we go. I got here my articles with the titles in here directly fetched from my instance here from Supabase and from the row level security that I will write. This was a really simple course on how to use hooks with Supabase with a debate on functional logic and business logic. Now you are able to use hooks and to call your Supabase client directly to use your business logic or just to create hooks for a functional goal. Previously, we talked about the hooks and how to use the hooks with Supabase and Nextjs. Now let's talk a little bit about real-time inside a Nextjs 14 application. Previously, we created this page home and we use this hook useArticle to fetch our article, to set them and to return them to our view in order to loop and to show those articles title. And when we come back to it, this is the result. That's good. However, with Supabase, we can use what we call real-time. With real-time, we subscribe actually to events. And when there's a new article, we actually can fetch it. So I'm going to come back to Supabase, and I'm going to come back to my table, which is article right now. And on this table article, I got only one row level security policy. I'm going to zoom a little bit. There we go. So I'm going to come back. There we go. And we can see up here that real time is off. So what we're going to do, we are going to insert here a new article directly inside the database, and we are going to subscribe on the front end. And we are going to check at two specifications. And the main question actually is, do we subscribe from the view or do we subscribe from the hook? There is here a trap, and this is what we are going to see now. Okay, I'm going to turn real-time on, and here I'm able to subscribe to my database. So the first thing I'm going to try here is to subscribe directly to my database. Okay, to subscribe to a database, we need to use our client. And first I'm going to write my client in here. So it's going to be Supabase directly like this inside my application. I'm going to type here channel, and I'm going to give a name. And here it's going to be articles follow-up. Let's say it's going to be this. And I'm going to listen here by typing on, and I'm going to type Postgres changes. There we go. I'm going to pass here an object, and this object will be what? It will be actually composed by 3 elements. The first element is going to be an event. So here the event is going to be all. I would like to have a notification every time there's going to be an event. Then here I'm going to have the schema, and here the schema, it's the public schema, because here my table is under the public schema up here. Okay, then the last thing, of course, is to specify the table. So here it's going to be the table articles. So I want to listen to the table articles. The third element here, it's going to be the payload. So here I'm going to type any, and I want to console log the payload. So when there will be a change, I'm supposed to receive here a payload, an event, and at the end, the last step is to use subscribe, of course. So I didn't put it into the use effect. I would like to see if it worked like this. So I'm going to get back, I'm going to open my console, and we are supposed to have a response. So I'm going to get back here and I'm going to insert a new row, and it's going to be here as a title. I'm going to put, for instance, here, new article. I'm going to click on save. There we go. Here we've got a response with an event type insert, and we even have the new article and we've got the old article. So if we subscribe here directly, not inside the use effect, but outside the use effect to a channel, it will work. So now when we got our new payload, we can insert it inside our articles. Okay, now let's come back to get articles. And here, let's say that we would have a function called subscribe to articles. Would it work? Now we are back inside our hook, and we've got now a function called subscribe to articles with everything in here. So if I return this subscribe to article and I come back to my page, and instead of having this here and I type subscribe to article, will it work? If I come back here, I got my list. I'm going to create the new article again, new article 2. I'm going to save. I'm going to get back in here, and it's also working, and it's pretty cool. Until now, there is no difference. And I can even try to put subscribe to article inside my use effect to see if it works. And I'm going to get back and I'm going to add a new article, and it works exactly the same. However, here we've got probably a problem, because what we are supposed to do every time we create a subscriber like this, it's to unsubscribe to the channel. And this is really important. You have always to unsubscribe from the channel because you are creating a socket. And here you would like to actually disable this socket if you are not using it. However, here in Nextjs and in most of JavaScript framework, the problem is that most of the time, even if you unmount a component or not, you still have the socket, and it's totally useless to keep those sockets, especially to use some resources that will not be really used inside your application. So what I recommend you to do is to always have a function here, subscribe to articles, for instance, or to have a function unsubscribe from articles that would actually unsubscribe your your instance. So let's try now to create our function, and we're gonna have remove all channels if you want to remove all the channels, and we don't need any argument for this one. However, for remove channel, we need to pass an argument, and I wish we could pass here the articles follow-up. However, we don't accept a string at this level. Actually, here we are supposed to pass the instance that is coming up here. But the problem is that here I didn't set up my subscribe into a variable. So basically, what I would like to do and what I should do here is to have here const subscribe channel, okay? Here my Superbase here instance. And after that, when I would click here on my unsubscribe function, I would need to get it actually not inside my hook, but down here, unsubscribe channel, and I would pass here my subscribe channel. So let's gonna test that. Let's say that we're gonna have some kind of button, which will be called unsubscribe, and I'm going to call it onClick. We are back. I'm going to add a fourth article. I'm going to go here and put new article 4. I'm going to save it. And if I come back, I got the notification. Now I'm going to click to unsubscribe. I'm going to add a fourth article. I'm going to go here and put new article 4. I'm going to save it. We don't get any notification for the fifth article, so it worked. In my opinion, it's way better to subscribe directly on the page, because here you get all the view on what is going on here, all the operation that you want to do, and also to have everything set up to subscribe and unsubscribe directly from the view. So you see that at this point, the hooks have their limits to store either the business logic, either the functional logic, especially with real time. So what I would do is to remove everything that is concerning the subscribe and put it directly to my view to gain efficiency, and also to be sure that when I unmount, I unsubscribe from my articles. I could even do it on unmount. But doing this, I gain more clarity and more readability inside my code and on what I'm doing with my subscribe channels. With real time, we got to be careful, especially with the life cycles of Nextjs 14. What I recommend you is to always doing it on the view to gain more clarity, but also to avoid side effects depending on the hooks. All right, it's time to apply everything that we've learned by creating an upvote application directly with Nextjs 14 and Supabase. Okay, we start on the base that we had before. So we've got our subscribe, unsubscribe from article. We can remove the unsubscribe for this part. And what I would like to work on is this item here, the list article. So here I'm using Tailwind, so I'm going to do a bit of design. I'm going to have a container here and a max width. I'm going to probably unzoom a little bit and we should be good. Okay, so what I would like to do is to have here our UL would be actually a class grid, and I would have some gap between the elements. And I would give some shape to my list item, because in this list item, actually, I'm going to stylize a little bit. So if I want to respect the rules of doing things, I'm going to go to source, I'm going to create a new folder called components. And in these components, I'm going to have an article item, let's call it like this. And I'm going to initiate it directly in here. And on this article here, I'm going to just pass a type, export type article here, that would be actually of type article, which an ID, which would be a string. Okay, so here it's going to be mandatory. I don't remember here. No, we've got a number. Okay, we've got a number. So it's going to be a number, and the date here, the created at, it's going to be a string. Yeah, here. And after that, we're going to have also what? We're going to have the title that would be a string. So I can put my title string in here. I can come back. And here we can see that I got here this list of article. Let's put instead a UL, a div. And here I'm going to put my article item directly from here with my key. And I'm going to pass the article directly here. So article as a props. So I would have article here, but my article item doesn't get the article yet. So what I want to do is to define this article of type what? Type article up here, so we are ready. And I can already deconstruct my article with the title for now. So what I can do here is to put my title, and I'm going to keep it this way. And if I come back to my app, we've got the same logic. If we do that, you're going to see after that, we're going to have a complete logic inside the item directly. Okay, I'm going to add some shape to it. It's going to be border px for py3. And when we come back to it, there we go. We're going to have what? We're going to have a cursor pointer. There we go. So when we're going to pass on it, we're going to have a hover, let's say a BG gray 900. So when I pass my mouse, we got this nice effect. Coming back to my page, I'm going to add here some padding on, some margin on the top and on the bottom. And we've got a list of articles that are displayed in here. That's totally fine. For the voting system, we would like to do it directly inside the article item. So what I can do here is to display, for instance, my H2. Let's put an H2. And here I'm going to have a div. And I would like to have a number of votes. So I'm going to work first on the design, then we are going to implement all the logic. Okay, so here I would like to have a number of votes, but I don't got any vote yet. We are going to create that logic just after. So I'm going to have at first, let's say, a span up and a span down. and in between we're gonna have a number of votes, and let's say 0 votes. When we come here, we see that it's down. I would like to have it on the side. So what I can do is to have a flex item sender justify between by using Tailwind, and suddenly we've got this. For those one, we would like to have a class grid. So we have on the top and on the bottom my element, and I would like to have the items on the center. So here I can just put here grid and text center. It would be good, and we should be good. We've got 0 vote. Okay, I got up and down. I don't want to keep up and down like this. I would like to have icons. So if I go to iconsjs.org, I'm able to download some icons, and when I click to them, here I can copy paste here, for instance, on React.ts. I can come back to my app, and I can go to components, and I can create a folder icons, and here I'm gonna have a hub.tsx, and there we go, and I can just copy paste the code that I got, and I need to use the client here. So I'm going to use the client this way. On the props, I can put any for now. It's going to be good. And we've got our first icon, so I can come back here, and instead of having a up, I can use here icons up, coming directly here from where? Import icons up from here, the components slash icon slash up, and we should be good. So here I need to come back and to change the name, otherwise we will never find it. I need to export default, of course. And when I come back, there we go, we've got our up here. If I want to have only one icon, what I can do simply is to do exactly the same. However, here we are going to rotate 180. And when I come back, I got down and I got up. And if I want to use only one icon, I can just use rotate 180, and when I come back, there we go, we've got our 2 icons here. Okay, so now we got our list of articles ready with our votes, and what I would like to do here is to come back to my Superbase and create a new table, and this table is going to be a table votes, and inside here I'm going to create a new column which would be called user ID, which will actually receive the UUID of the current user. Remember, we need the session to do it. I got my user ID, which is here, and I'm going to add also the article ID, which here is going to be an int directly in here, and we're going to be able to save the user ID and the article ID. What I can do immediately is to create a relation between my articles here, ID, and the ID here, and also, if I would like to create it, a reference between the auth ID, the auth user here, ID directly, if I would like to. Well, I'm not going to do it, I don't need it. Okay, we've got our table votes. What we're going to do at first is to create a new RLS policy. And this new RLS policy would be that everybody that is authenticated could read the votes. Okay, so remember, we want people to be authenticated, otherwise we can let them public if you want to. It's going to be the same, so I'm going to type read for all, I'm going to click on review, save policy, and we should be good. So now everybody is able to read the votes. So back to our app, when I click here, I should add actually a new row inside my votes, actually using all the tables, all the columns of the table that I set up here. I'm going to go to hooks, I'm going to duplicate use articles, and I'm going to call it use votes, and I'm going to create here actually a hook called use votes with votes and set votes. And this is just an example, right? Because after we are going to be able to retrieve the vote through the articles. So here I'm going to type get votes, and I'm going to call all the votes set votes, and here down here I could have votes and get votes directly from here. That's the basic. Now I want to set a new vote, so I can use a new function called const new new vote. Okay, and it will be an asynchronous function that will take 2 parameters. It's supposed to take the user ID and the article ID. However, remember, we can get our current session. So what we can do here is to call first our session, and we don't want to mix the hooks together. What we would like to do is just to call the session directly from here. So I'm just going to copy paste in here my element. Otherwise, if you want, you can pass the user ID here. Me, to go faster, I'm just going to call my session here. So the article ID, which will be a number, and then we're going to call our session. If there is no session, we want to return an error, return alert. You are not log authenticated, which will actually never happen because we don't get access if we are not authenticated. Okay, so remember I got my data with my session. I'm going first to console log my data to be sure how it looks like. And I'm going to bind this new vote here. I'm going to bind this new vote to my article item. So I'm going to come back here and directly inside my item, I'm going to here use the article ID that I got up here. So I can use votes directly inside my item here, and I'm going to call what? I'm going to call new vote. And we will see that here this new vote will have two roles, to set a vote and to delete a vote. So I'm going to click here new vote, and I'm going to say that here every time I'm going to click on my icon, I'm going to set the new vote, and I need what? I need the article.id. Okay, so the article is coming from up here, and remember we've got the ID here. So what I can do is to put the ID like this. Let's go here with just test, and when I click we can see that I got my session and I got the user here in my session. So I would deconstruct here my session. So I got what? I got the user, and inside the user I got the ID, so I will be able here to get everything. If I got my ID, now I can just const here data error is equal to await superbase coming from our superbase library. We're gonna say from here, and here on from we're gonna use votes, and we are going to insert what? We are going to insert the article ID that we've got here, but also the user ID, which is equal to ID here. And what we want to do is to select the element, which is a single element. Okay, and what we're going to do with that, we are going to set it up directly to votes. So I'm going to just set vote, here with previous data, which will be for now any, because we don't get any type yet. And we are going to return the previous state. And with that, we are going to actually get the data here, our element up here. Let's come back in here. Let's just try to click. And here we've got an error. Why? Because we didn't set up the RLS policy. Back in the RLS policy, we can read them, but we can't write them, which is a common mistake. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to insert, and I'm going to say that everybody can insert a vote to start, because after we are going to change that. So I'm going to put insert for all. I'm going to click on review. I'm going to save on policy, and I'm going to get back to the table immediately to have a look at it. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to click on upvote, and look at this. We've got a vote that has been recorded with my user ID and the article ID. The only problem is that if I click a lot, it will insert a lot of votes, and I don't want that. I would like to stop and to say, hey, you can insert only if there is no record with my user ID and the same article. So how can we do this? In order to be sure that we're not gonna have duplicates like this, we need to write a constraint directly inside our Superbase. So let's write this constraint. We're gonna type alter table, and then we are going to target our table, which is the votes. There we go. And we're gonna add here a constraint. And the constraint we're gonna add is going to be called unique vote, for instance. There we go. And we're gonna say it's going to be unique. And here we are going to target, two keys, and those two keys are the combination actually of user ID and article ID. So with this constraint that we got here, we make the possibility to get a double vote on a combination of a user ID and article ID null. It will be impossible to vote 2 times for the same article. So I will click here on run. There we go. And now I'm going to get back to my votes table. And we are going to see here, I got only one vote. And I'm going to remove that. And if I try to vote again, I got a conflict and I can't insert a second vote. 2 possibilities from now. Now we want to remove our actual vote. And the thing is that we don't get the vote locally yet. Actually, when we set the vote, we set the vote down here. But this is not really an easy way of doing it. What we would like to do is actually to remove our vote. What we can do is to push here a remove boolean on false. And if we remove, we're gonna have this function delete vote to delete the vote that is equal to the article ID and the user ID that is supposed to be unique directly on the database. And then I can here bind here new vote with ID and true. Before that, I need to write the RLS policy to delete. So what I can do, I can go here, I'm going to unzoom, and I'm going to say, hey, I want to delete, okay? Only if auth UID is equal to user ID. And remember, we've got here delete here for user ID. We can remove only if we own the vote. So I'm going to click on here, save policy, and we are able to delete our vote. I'm coming back here. Remember, I got a vote on this article. I'm going to click down, and when I come back, it removed my vote. Okay, all of that is really nice. However, we would like to get the votes, and to do this, we are going to come back to our hook, and we are going to come back to use articles. And when we fetch the articles, we would like also to fetch the votes directly here. So I'm just going to console log the data here, and I'm going to get back there. And when we fetch the data, there we go, we've got the articles. And if we look to the first article here, we see that there is no vote. Okay, so I'm going to remove that. I'm going to click here to vote again. And I'm going to update because we didn't work yet on the real time. And here we can see that we've got one vote that is here. So I'm going to get back. And what I want to do here is on my article item to display the number of the votes. So remember, on my article, I will have votes, which will be here. Actually, it will be mandatory. And we're going to have any for now because we don't have any type vote. And I would like to have vote length. So when I come back, look at this. We've got the number of the vote that is up here. At this point of the course, the best way would be actually to have our function new vote not inside the use vote, and this is where it's interesting, but actually to get it inside the use article hook. So here I can come back to use articles, and instead I'm gonna have here my function new vote. So I would need to update here my article item, and instead of having here use vote, I'm going to have use articles, and it makes more sense because I'm on an article. So what we can do, which is a really fast solution, is to subscribe not only to the article here, and we are going to remove this, but we are going to subscribe to what? We are going to subscribe to the votes. And every time there will be a new vote, what we would like to do is to get the articles. So I'm going to just push that here. Before that, we need to enable the real time here on our vote. So I'm going to click on enable real time. So the trick here is to subscribe to the votes and to get the articles when there is a new vote. So we can come back to the app. I'm going to update. And here I'm going to click on new vote. And we can see here that I got one vote. And if I click again, I can see that my vote disappear. I hope you really enjoyed this short course about Nextjs 14 with Supabase, and you can use this quick app directly from the repository. If you like this course, please subscribe, put a star on the repository, leave a comment. Thank you very much and see you next time.